Why are there so many religions in the world? I mean, how do you know? Oh gosh, another difficult religious question. Winter's over. I've been stuck in the studio for weeks and weeks. I've made 30 or 40 videos in the last couple of weeks. I've got to get out of this studio. Let's have this discussion. There's a creek down the road I've been wanting to check out. Let's go down there and we'll have the discussion about why there's so many religions in the world, okay? So why are there so many religions in the world? As I discuss this, I'm going to make reference to videos that I've made in the past couple of weeks about the spiritual human soul, or the evidence that God exists, or fallen human nature. If you didn't see those videos, check out the playlist that I put at the end of this video, just so we can all kind of get on the same page. Now, if humans do have a spiritual soul, then it makes sense that humans would seek out the cause for this effect, that they would be searching for something spiritual that corresponds to this interior aspect of our nature. So when we go around the world and find any culture of any people, regardless of religion at all, it makes sense that you would find people who are trying to have some kind of religious, some kind of spiritual experience to respond to this thing that they have inside of them. This vlogging thing isn't as easy as it looks. Maybe I should go back to the studio. One of the questions we get a lot is are other religions, are they true? Can all religions be true? When we look at other religions, we see things in them that are reasonable or they're good. And the analogy I'd like to make is, I've got this digital recorder I was actually trying to use to get audio for this video, and I love this thing. It's been the workhorse of all these videos I've made for the last year, but just in the last couple of minutes, it just completely busted on me. It's not working at all, so I hope the audio for this video actually works out. But the analogy is that somebody used logic to create this thing, and it worked and it was good up to a certain point, but then it reached its suitable limits and it was no longer useful. So now I got to use that mic. So if you look at the things that we create, whether they're microphones or religions, because we have an intellectual soul, we are able to create things that are good and that are reasonable. But because of our fallen human nature, eventually everything that we create reaches its imperfect end. So what about when people have spiritual experiences in other religions? Does that validate those religions? Does that mean that that's evidence that they're true? Well, I think not, because our spirituality comes from our human soul. It's part of our nature. Whether or not we had a religion or not, we would still have spiritual experiences. It's part of who we are. So some weeks ago, I shared a story about a Dominican sister who explained to me that whatever your end goal is, that will determine your best method for reaching that goal. And the reason why I shared that story is because I thought it was so profound. And I think it applies here, because what is your goal? What is your goal in life? If your end goal it doesn't match the same goal as the religion, then you're not going to find that religion useful. All at the same time, a religion places an ethical code, a moral code on you, and you might have to sacrifice things like pleasure or honor or wealth, and maybe you believe honestly that those things could make you happy. So religion ends up being a hindrance to your goals, not something that helps you meet your goals. The reason why there are so many different religions in the world is because they all have a different purpose. They're all trying to reach a different goal. Now, I don't pretend to be an expert or even understand the goal that Buddhism or Hinduism is trying to reach. I really don't know very much about them at all. But I don't see a conflict with those religions existing in the same world as Christianity because they have different goals in mind. Now, if your goal is the salvation of fallen human nature, then Christianity is the only game in town. So in previous videos, when we were talking about logical reasoning, we explained that we can know through exercises like St. Thomas Aquinas' 5 ways or 5 proofs, we can demonstrate that God does exist, but we can't know who he is. There's only so far that logic will take us. We cannot bridge this gap of knowing who he is, like his essence, his person. We only know that he does exist. We can't know who he is. So atheists will ask a fair question. They'll say, well, then how do you know that your God is the real God? How do you know what really is unknowable? And the answer to that question is the entire Judeo-Christian tradition is based on the idea of divine revelation, that when we couldn't know God, that God came down and he condescended and he revealed who he was to us so that we could know him. And he did this in numerous events, particularly at Mount Sinai, in Bethlehem. So the question that you need to ask yourself is there enough historical evidence that validates that those events actually happen, that they are historical fact? Now maybe I should do a video on that topic. So why should I be a Christian when there's so many other religions in the world? The theological answer that I'm supposed to give you is that Christianity claims to save us from our fallen human nature. We spoke in a previous video about fallen human nature. Our fallen human nature will be the end of all of us. We all suffer and we will all die. Christianity claims that through the salvation of Jesus Christ, that he suffered and died on the cross and rose from the dead, that through that process, he changed the nature of suffering and death, and we will all rise from the dead on the last day. That's the claim that Christianity makes. That's the purpose of this religion. That's why we commit our lives to this religion. But that's not the full reason. That's not the whole reason. The deeper reason for me is that in the process of learning this faith, I came to know this person of Jesus, to learn his heart, to learn who he is, the essence of this person. And in that knowledge, in knowing who he is, I fell in love with him. So the purpose of Christianity is love. Now, I've mentioned a number of topics in this video: fallen human nature, the evidence that God exists, the spiritual soul of humans. If you missed any of those topics, check out the videos in this playlist. Click on this playlist and I'll see you over there.
Professor for help. And he says the oddest thing. 10-year-old Brad didn't understand this. I couldn't understand what he was talking about. Logic, said the professor. Why don't they teach logic at these schools? Logic? Logic? What's logic? Is it like spelling? Why don't they teach it?